Welcome to another episode of Wits and Weights. I'm chatting today with Scott Friedman about the mindset side of health and fitness, which I think is underrated but critical principle for success. Scott is a nationally accredited personal trainer, fitness nutrition coach, and behavior change specialist who's been in the fitness industry for years. He's worked with hundreds of clients and specializes in mentoring them on how to build long-term sustainable habits using his key principles of mindset, motion, and momentum. Scott is a unique and engaging speaker, coach, and host of the Power of Progress podcast. Make sure to subscribe. He prides himself on understanding the needs of those who wish to change their lives. Through storytelling, personal experience, and a refreshingly honest take on the fitness and nutrition industry, Scott empowers and inspires his audiences and clients to take congruent action to achieve their goals. His authentic grip it and rip it style resonates with people and motivates them to take practical steps that improve their lives. Scott, man, thank you for coming on the show.
No, man, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we connected a little while back and we're doing a little podcast swap here. So today we're going to talk mindset and maybe some training and things like that. I just want to start with your background, right? You have your podcast, The Power of Progress. You're also a public speaker, you're a coach, you're a trainer. So what inspired you to get into the fitness industry? And I do want to know about your grip it and rip it style.
So I think it goes back, I don't want to go too long with it, but it goes back to junior year of high school. I've always been like this lanky kid. My dad used to call me like Elmo or like a Sesame Street character because my arms were so lanky, but there was like a good layer of muscle there. But I had like these lanky arms. And I was like, okay, fine. I'm a lanky kid. No big deal. But then the winter of my sophomore year, actually, I started to get a little bit of a gut. And it wasn't anything bad, but you couldn't see like the skinny kid six pack anymore. It wasn't like a real six pack, but like I was skinny, so I could see it. I couldn't see it, so I was like, oh my gosh, like I need to like do something. So I started joining some sports, and from there, when you join like the track team or whatever it is, varsity track team, it's they start making you weightlift. I've never weightlifted before in my entire life. I started doing it, and it was like the most embarrassing thing. Like when you first start with all these like seniors, and you're like a sophomore or junior, and they're like lifting all this weight. I'm like, okay, I don't know what I'm doing, but I kind of fell into it. So I graduate high school. I started to get this routine going. Started going to the gym every day after school, right before I graduate. My mom pushed me to do physical therapy. Is my major in college, and I'm like, okay, I'll do physical therapy. They make good money, I think, and I could say I'm a doctor. Like that's what the parents want. I'll do all that. 2 years in, I'm doing like organic chemistry and like just biophysics. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I don't care about. I just want to like work out. Like I don't understand. So I found out. I had no idea. I found out that there's a kinesiology program, which I have no idea what that is. It's exercise science, which is basically personal training in a nutshell. And I'm like, I'll just switch to this. All the classes are super easy, and I'll just be a personal trainer. Like, why not? That's what I want to do anyway. So I switched halfway through. I took a little longer to graduate, but I switched halfway through and went to kinesiology. And I like to say I aced most of my classes, but I got into it, and really that was kind of the start of it. That 3-year period of like, senior to sophomore in college was really where like I really honed my love for working out. And I think my freshman year of college, where I moved to a brand new city, probably an hour away from home, but I lived in the dorms, and I broke my ankle in the first 3 weeks of school. Like, imagine I live on the 5th floor of this 1940s building, no elevator, no air conditioning, in the middle of August, September in Chicago. So it's boiling hot. I live on the top bunk. I know one person, and that's my roommate. He's the one who convinced me to go, like a jerk. And broken ankle, don't know anyone. So I'm sitting there every day. I hobble to class.
Crutches, right?
On crutches, in a boot and crutches. I hobble to class. And we had like a Subway deli basically. So I'd order 2 sandwiches when I got home, one for lunch, one for dinner. And other than that, I would literally just be at the gym every single day for like 2 hours, mostly because it took me like forever to walk around. It only was like an hour of working out, but I had to hobble from each station, set things up. Yeah. And that was really it. I mean, that's when the routine clicked. I had nothing else to do but work out for like a year straight, or maybe it was like 6 months, whatever it is. And that's really where it came from. I just loved how I felt, loved how I looked, just to be as vain as possible. And that, and you're a college kid, like that's what you love. And obviously, as I grew in the career and as I kind of made it a career, you grow and you find out more about fitness than just lifting heavy weights a billion times to be as, jacked as possible when you're in college.
Of course, man. And you mentioned the vanity thing, but it's kind of funny because people don't care about vanity until they see that they get the results from this, and then they care about vanity. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes.
because people I was listening to another show and they were talking about how this guy lost a ton of weight and was able to nail everything down and improve his body for the first time in his entire 50 years of life in like 6 months. And you could do it that fast. And it was like, it drove him to do that. So that's okay, man. Right. I don't know if you answered the question or I didn't get it, but the grip it and rip it style, what's that
Oh
all about?
yeah.
Yeah.
So I've always been kind of a contrarian when it came to school, especially in college. My instructor, so a good example with fitness, we had this guy come in and, we just had learned, an hour, a day before about how if you're overweight or obese, clinically speaking, like you shouldn't be doing probably eccentric, concentric lifting too much because it could cause a heart attack because it reduces the blood vessels. And so we learned all this stuff. Okay. This guy comes in and he comes in all professional, owns a gym, very, suave, talks to us. He starts talking how, oh, he doesn't care. He doesn't do anything, any testing, any medical testing, anything like that. He starts talking about, oh, like this is great. So I'm the jerk who basically is like, well, we just learned what you just said will probably cause someone to have a heart attack without them consulting their doctor and making sure they're healthy enough to work out. So why would we want to do that? Why would we want to work for you? And like in front of this guy. And so
Mhm.
I've always been this guy of like, I don't take what everyone says as like the gospel. And I've always, when you pass the certification test, when you do all these textbooks, and then you're like, oh, I'm so ready to go. I'm so ready to like be in fitness. And then you get into fitness and you're like, this is nothing. Like what were you teaching me for
Does
4
it
like what
compute, right?
at
Something
all?
doesn't make sense.
It's like I wasted so much money. So I tell people now in college, I'm like, honestly, like just get the certification and get practical experience. Like
Right.
don't waste time going to college because it's not the same. So my grip it and rip it really came from I hate the idea of these suave people sitting on a pedestal, they, with their amazing corporate PowerPoint and, talking as if they, their doctorates. It's like most people communicate on like a seventh grade level.
Mhm.
This is how we communicate. And that's how I communicate. I don't want to be bogged down in the nuances of, oh, make sure this is perfect. Make sure, no, just go and talk and people will resonate with the message. People could understand, even if you misspeak, people will understand what you're trying to say. And when I started the podcasting era of what I was doing a couple of years ago, and my whole thing was, I am not going to do this if I have to worry about lighting, if I have to worry about the best possible headset, the best possible
Mhm.
microphone, the best possible backdrop, which I imagine most people will tell me, oh, you can improve this, you can improve that. I'm like, if I can't just talk into a microphone and if I need to make all these outlines, I won't do it. So my whole goal was, what if I do this and just talk and just go at it? And when I first got started, I was listening to a different podcast who was very similar, who he just talked into a microphone, no script, no
Yep.
nothing, and it was
Yep.
very authentic, transparent. And I thought that it resonated with me because I was like, that's how I talk. That's how I want people. I don't want this. Well, today, what we're gonna do, and it's just like I don't need, and that's not how fitness is. Fitness is very fluid, and fitness is very well. It depends, and I think
Yeah.
it goes in that organic nature of let's just have a conversation. We're gonna mess up. We're gonna stutter. We're not gonna be the perfect, essence of speaking or whatever it might be. And that's kind of the grip and rip it. I tell you how it is, and not gonna sugarcoat what can happen if you do it a certain way. And that's
Cool.
kind of where the grip and rip it came from.
Cool. Yeah. And that's so if I were to interpret it, that's kind of what I was getting from it. Of course, it's a deadlifting term, I think, right? Grip it and rip it. But
Yeah.
it comes across as like, don't let perfection be the enemy of the good. Like just take action. Don't wait. Don't make excuses, especially, right? It's like, oh, everything has to be set up just right. Of course, I'm very anal and very organized about things. So some of the podcast stuff does hit me a little bit right here because I do prepare, but it's okay. We're all different, right? That's the point. So, all right, let's get into some of the mindset stuff then we're here to talk about. You have your key principles as part of your, who you are and how you talk through this of mindset, motion, and momentum. And that first one being mindset, I don't know if it's intentionally first, but it gives it a clue to how important it is. So most people have a goal, right? Most people have a specific goal, and it's usually like, hey, I want to lose weight, I want to look good, I want to lose X pounds. I have a date that I need to hit for an event, whatever. What's your approach with a client who comes in and says that, and maybe maybe, and you tell me, maybe instead you want to focus them on the process or on the lifestyle changes before really trying to get to that goal, which may be months out?
It's a great question because you have to, there's a balance when it comes to, training clients. And I teach a bunch of new trainers now kind of how to find that balance in when you're training because they're paying you to get results. At the end of the day, they're paying you to get
Hmm.
results. So I think if someone were to come to me and what I've done is I let them know, number one, that like, here's what I'm looking at, right? I'm looking at, okay, like you're saying this, but what are your actions or what are your actions actually telling us? So I think there is a balance when someone comes to you and you know that they're not ready or you want to talk about something else. But at the same time, you also need to show them they got to get results because they're paying you, especially if you're working in a practical sense, right? If you're working in a commercial gym where you have a sales quota, if you're working at a studio, if your job is to personal train or even on your own, you're a contractor and you go to places or whatever it is, you got to get results. You have to be a good trainer. So you can't stop that and go, well, for the first 6 months, we're going to work on building this habit
Mm.
for, and so you have to, it's kind of a mix. You incorporate things where you can, and then use your expertise and your knowledge of, okay, look, this is why this is happening. I have a client recently who I've been working with him for over a year. And I don't think he'll listen to this, so it's okay. I can say it.
Talk
And
about clients all the
yeah,
time. Just
yeah,
don't
right.
use their name.
Yeah, no name. But he had nothing. Eating was horrible. Fitness is horrible. He, of course, he wants to make the change. He's paying me good money to make the change, and we've got him finally in a good fitness routine. But his diet, and again, I don't want to use the word diet necessarily, but for the sake of the argument, use the
Hmm.
word diet, is horrible. I mean,
Hmm.
it's absolute trash. It's probably one of the worst I've seen, to be totally honest.
Okay.
And but I can't. What am I going to do? Am I not going to train him so that we can focus? But he won't do that. So I have to find the compromise of, okay, where can I push him? Where can I not push him and get him results along the way? And eventually what we've started to do was we've taken these mini steps. And like you said, kind of earlier, different verbiage, but progress is new perfection. So if someone wants to change their mindset, it's on me to know that and to basically create that adaptation. So what I started doing actually was, instead of personal training, I focus more on coaching. And that's kind of where I differentiate, because I felt when I was at a studio or I was at a commercial gym, I don't have time for that. You're a trainer, right? You have 30 minutes, 45 minutes. You got to get them sweating. You got to get them results. That's what you're getting paid for. You don't have a lot of time to talk about
Mm.
their mindset or
Right.
talk about their habits. And so you have to work in those things when you're stretching them, when you're doing these things. But it's important to realize, okay, how do I do that when I'm trying to personal train them? Because if you can kind of find that balance, then they'll stay with, they might not stay with you because they'll learn a lot, but they will give you referrals. They're going to love you. It's going to be a great experience for you. And the way I've done that is I've transitioned from personal training to more of a coaching perspective. So, and I differentiate that between, okay, personal training is more so kind of what traditional, you work out with them, weights, sets,
Right.
all
You're
that stuff.
just holding their hand right there through the workout.
Exactly.
Yep. Hmm.
And coaching is, I focus less on, I'm not going to hold your hand. I'm going to give you all the tools that you need. I'll give you the exact workout that you need, but I'm not going to be there with you working out. You're going to have to, I'll have the videos for you. I'll have everything you need, but you got to learn it. Because if you're not going to learn it, then I'm not sure I can help you with the mindset part of it. So I've deviated from personal training directly to more of a coaching programming perspective. And both are needed, by the way. Some people absolutely need personal training. They need that handheld, and some don't. It just depends on kind of who you're talking to.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting hearing it from your perspective because I come from the other side of it, the nutrition coaching side, and I'm trying to get more and more into working with people on their training, but without being a personal trainer, which is being all online. It's like form checks and here's your program, and now go and do your squats, and then the next day I'm going to have to fix all the bad squats you just did, and I can't do that in the moment like a personal trainer can. So it's like you have to trust that they're going to take that information, which means you have to communicate it really well.
Yes.
Um, Cool. So we just covered a lot about the fact. I like the example you made about the 6 months. Like we can't work on something for 6 months before we get going. You wish you could, right? Like you wish you
In a
could
perfect
be with
world.
a client for 5 years and like just fix everything over those 5 years. Right?
Well, it's, most people are like, you'll get a client who, let's say you're at the commercial gym or something, and oh, let's buy a 12 pack of 30-minute sessions. After 4 sessions, they're like, "Why haven't I lost weight?" I'm like, dude, like you're probably 50 years old, whatever. And like, I'm trying to undo 50 years of crap that you've done to your body in like 4 sessions. Like you
Yeah,
gotta, so it takes time too. And that's the issue. It takes a lot
it
of time to
does.
get those
It does.
sustainable results, I should say. You could probably starve someone quickly if you
Yeah, of
needed
course.
to.
And that's the problem with our industry, right? There's so many people with the short-term fix, and you have
Yeah.
to package it in a different way and message it in a different way where they're still going to stick with you. And I think your podcast and speaking to people and having them hear and trust you and understand it's a long game goes a long way. But how would you, so kind of going off the cuff on this, if somebody really, really needs a lot of work, okay, they're stressed by their job. They get 5 hours of sleep. They're not training consistently. They barely move. Their diet is trash, like you said. Um, God, where do you start with that?
I think it has to be case by case. I think you figure out where in behavioral, change, kind of stuff, you have the pre-contemplation, the contemplation fields, or the action fields. So you kind of figure out which stage they're in each part of it. If the fitness is the easiest part or if the nutrition is the easiest part.
Hmm.
If someone comes to me and says, okay, oh, I love to cook and I hate to work out, I may focus on the nutrition aspect because I'm nutrition certified, so I can do that. But obviously not with the RD stuff. But I may focus on that first and say, okay, let's make baby steps this way, because we all know that nutrition is extraordinarily important, if not even they're symbiotic, but very, very important. That
Hmm.
it doesn't
For
get
sure.
the credit it deserves. So I probably focus on that. If they tell me that they hate cooking, they only eat out, but they can probably schedule in time to work out, I may focus on the workout first. So I think it's a matter of progress is the new perfection. If I can get
Hmm.
them 1% better every time and just keep going and show them, look, when we first started a month ago, here's where you were at, here's where you're at now. You might not see weight loss necessarily if that's the goal, but here's what you're doing. Like, look at what you've done. You've done 12 workouts, you've done X, Y, and Z, you've built muscle here. Like, you're on the right path. It's going to take time. And I'm very transparent with that. I'm like, this is going to take time. Like, you're
Yeah.
investing in the process, just like a job, just like a relationship. This is no different than anything else. Like, you didn't start in a company at president. You started with minion and you worked your way up to whatever director role that you might have. It's the same thing. Your body's the same way. You got to start from where you're at and then work your way up, and then so on and so forth. So it is a very hard question, but the answer is it depends based on kind of where their mindset's at. But I wouldn't attack it all at once. I would go
Hmm.
one at a time, very small steps.
Yeah, and you that's what I was getting from what you're saying is the small wins. It's like a lot of people try to start from the biggest gap maybe and try to fix that, and then it's very demotivating when it takes time to kind of close that gap. Whereas you're saying start from your strengths, start from where you're close but not quite there, and it's something you enjoy, and then you can get that quick win, right? And then spiral it into these other things. At least that's what I'm getting from what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. And again, maybe that's not, maybe some psychologists out there says, no, start with the bigger win because you hear all these different, and there's nothing wrong with that. I just
Right.
think that
It's up to
when
the
you're
individual.
building momentum, building that, win after win, progress after progress, that builds your momentum, which then creates that snowball effect of, okay, now you feel better. When what I found, at least in my experience, is when people first ask you, I want to lose weight, I want to do this, they're not understanding that this is a lifestyle change versus something they're going to do for 6 months and then stop. What most people do is they think they're going to, once I lose 40 pounds, I can go back to
Hmm.
eating chocolate cake. I can go, it's like, no, 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 no. This is your life now. Like, this
Hmm.
is what you have to do. So when you start getting these wins and when you start feeling better and better and better and you start, seeing it, that's a good way to build that mindset of, okay, this feels good. I can do this, because they don't know what that feels like until they start to feel it. So that's kind of how I attack it of, let's get these, again, however slow it is depends on the person, but let's
Hmm.
get these small wins, build momentum, and then slowly this will change your mindset to, in a year from now, you won't recognize yourself like, oh my gosh, I worked out 3 days a week for a year and I never did that before. And those are
Right.
small wins. And now it's part of your life, part of your habit, and you're going to start seeing more and more results as you snowball. Again, the more you move, the more you do, the more results you're going to get. So obviously it
For
depends on
sure.
how fast you want to go.
Yeah, yeah. I'm picking up what you're putting down, man. And I think that people listening who just even when they're doing it on their own, take heart if you feel like you've got a lot to work on and you've been going years doing one thing, just listen to what Scott's saying, right? Attack one behavior that is a small win in an area that you enjoy, start to build on that. Because motivation, we know, willpower, motivation, they're nice in the short term for a little burst, or even if you have a coach, it's nice to have that coach to push you, but it's not a sustainable approach. And I know you like to talk about that too, right? Motivation and willpower. What's the alternative to that? Is it what we were just talking about? Are there some other mindset games and strategies you bring into play?
I think motivation is great to get started. There's no doubt, like, you're not going to do it if you're not motivated. I'm also, also won't do it if you don't want to do it. So you got to be
Hmm.
motivated to some extent. Motivation lasts about 2 weeks, and I say that because it's like 80% of any health goal from New Year's ends in about 2 weeks. So by January 15th, all the health goals are already over, or 80% are already over. So
Yeah.
motivation doesn't last very long. Motivation doesn't last when it's 5 in the morning. snowing cold in the Midwest and your car doesn't start and you got to warm it up. That's not, there's no motivation there.
Mhm.
I think what helps, I guess there's two things. One, discipline. I think discipline is really where people should be focused, and discipline is habit building. If you can do
Yeah.
something over and over again and build that habit, there's something called basically neurological pathways, where if you do something over and over again, repetition is how we learn, you're going to build that muscle memory basically in a more of a habit sense than the actual muscle memory. So I think that's number one is discipline, build discipline, focus on that, focus on, you don't have to like what you're going to do as
Mhm.
long as you go and do it. I like half the time, and this might be horrible to say, like, I don't want to work out half the time. I have to be
Mhm.
like, okay, I'll go do it, like, fine. And I feel phenomenal when I'm done. And that's a discipline. Versus if I didn't do it because I wasn't motivated, I wouldn't do it. And I think that's a huge differential. So I do it even when I don't want to. So that's number one. And then when it comes to trying to stay, I guess, supporting yourself, I would say some tools that I will implement is number one, what's your reason why? Why do you want to, let's just say, losing
Yeah,
weight? Why do you want to
that's a
lose
good
weight?
one. Mhm.
Seriously, like what is the reason that you want to lose it? And don't tell me, tell yourself, what is it? And then once you find, you should be able to write out 30 reasons. It could be family, it could be personal, it could be as vain as you want to be, as long as it's important to you. When I was 22, years ago, uh, being having a six pack and it being just the hottest guy around was a really important goal to me. Now
Mhm.
that has changed since then, but that was important. And at the time, that would force me to go to the gym because that's what I wanted. So whatever goal you have, I think that's really important. So understanding your reason why, and then making it visible, I think is super important, because I have a whiteboard in my apartment where I live, and I have specific goals and specific whys written down so that I look at every morning. I can reaffirm, okay, got to do this today, got to do this today. Because if you don't, what's going to happen? You're going to wake up, do your normal routine, you're going to forget all about it. Especially when work gets busy, when children are sick, when you got to go to the soccer game. I have constant reminders. There's actually, I learned this
Yeah.
from Bob Proctor. I'm not sure if you know who Bob Proctor is, but he's kind of like the personal development guru. And he actually just died last year. But he actually used to carry around a note card in his pocket and would write down his reasons why or his specific goal. And he wouldn't look at it, but he would know it was there. So every time he felt his pocket, it would remind him, that's my goal. So if, like, for example, if your goal is to work out 3 days a week and you have that in your pocket and you feel it, work out 3 days a week, you'll constantly be resetting your mind. So it's not necessarily a motivational tactic. It's more of a support system tactic. What's your reason why? And then make it visible so you can constantly remind yourself to do something. Because I have clients all the time. They know 100%. I know I got to go for a walk. I know I can't eat this ravioli or whatever it is that's left out. I know, but they don't do it. And they don't do it because
Yep.
they don't reset themselves every day. They just kind of,
And there's always a reason, right, that they
they
didn't
all
do it. There's always a reason.
100%.
So what I like that. So the discipline and then the why. But with the why, with the card idea, is that something you use with clients? Like concretely, do you say, "Hey, go do this"? Like on the onboarding call, let's write it down on an index card, or is there some strategy you use with them?
Yeah, so I try to.
Yeah,
Again, I'm
you
very,
can't force people to do stuff. Yeah,
yeah. So I usually give them an option, and I see what sticks and what doesn't stick. But I tell them, if you do everything I tell you to do, you're going to see better results. If you don't do it, I can't. But I'm not going to force you. Like, you have to be able to do
exactly.
it. Now, again, depends on the situation. I try and force the best I can without being too pushy. Because
It depends
if
on
you're
the
too pushy
right?
too early, clients
Yeah.
will they won't trust you. So,
Oh, for
but
sure.
I attempt, yes, that's something I do attempt to do. At minimum, I say they have to have some sort of piece of paper on their desk or in their sink at their house so they can see it every day when they brush their teeth or something like that. If they have
I
a
like this
whiteboard,
idea.
yeah, if they have a whiteboard, even better. If they have an office, if they have a somewhere that their spouse or friends can't see it at their house or at work, put it there, but put it somewhere where it's personal to you. I wouldn't do it on the computer, mostly because you need to open your computer to see. It's got to be visible right when you walk in the door, and that's where my whiteboard is. That's where the mirror
Fair
is.
enough.
That's
Yeah.
so yeah.
Yeah, we're like so inundated with our reminders and technology that we tend to ignore them anyway.
Yeah, you can put it on your phone, but I'm
Yeah,
not sure.
right.
Will people? First, I've got to put it on your phone. That's the hard
Yeah,
part.
yeah.
It's like, actually, and then are people actually going to follow that? Is the question. Kind of just
It's
need
so
to know.
funny how these old school tools can still be highly effective. Like
Oh,
just literally just yesterday, I have a client who checks in with me, who tells me daily what's going on because she's in a phase where like we're trying to get through a triggering issue with her food. And
mhm.
now she's like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and on an index card write like my couple guidelines that I have, and every time I go out this weekend, I'm just gonna bring it out. I'm like, it reminds you of that.
Love that. I love that.
It's great.
Probably seeing
Cool.
good results
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, like you said, everybody's individual and the communication style depends. Like some clients really want tough love, and you could just, hey, you need to do this for me now because if not, you're failing yourself, blah blah blah. And others, it's like pussyfooting around it. Um, cool. So we talked about perception and mindset a little bit, and I mean, what about shifting mindset? There's another concept that I like to get into and learn more about. I want to hear your perspective on that. Of the fixed growth versus growth mindset, or whatever school of thought you want to bring up. In people's way of thinking can change over time, right? So is there methodology you use there, you talk to about that for shifting your mindset?
Yeah, for sure. So, and I'll preface this: I'm not a psychologist, so
Sure.
obviously take what I say with a
You're
grain of
not a
salt.
psychologist, you're not an RD. Okay, we established that.
Yeah, so don't take
Be glad you're not an RD, because then you're forced to give people meal plans.
yeah, I don't want to do that. So, which people ask all the time. I'm like, what do you mean? Give you here's like what I eat, but go figure it out.
Right,
No.
go figure it out. You're an adult. Yeah.
So shifting mindsets is so difficult. I will say, and from someone who like there's plenty of things. I'm going through it right now. So one of my mindset shifts is I want to meditate every single day, or at least 6 days a week. I'm willing to give myself that one day off just if something happens. And I have not built that in. I went like 3 months doing great. Then I took the summer
Mm.
off because I'm stupid, and then I'm trying to get back into it. And so, shifting your mindset is very difficult. First, in my mind, it can be very difficult to do because we are basically a computer program. We are hard. There are many things that we are taught when we were younger that we don't even know that we're doing now.
Mm.
So when you're, there's certain, if you look up brainwave activities before you're 7 years old, I think you're always in theta brainwave, which is basically your subconscious brainwave, which is where you just literally just take all the information and you absorb it all. And then you basically build this computer program in your head, and that's kind of how you perceive the world. And
Mm.
so even brothers who live in the same household, they might get different stories by having different interactions with people. That's how they grow up differently. Or they have the same story and they grow up the same way. And that's how some people, same age, different parts of the country, there's different stories. So you're almost hardwired to have a specific story. So if your story in your head tells you that you're not good enough, or you're not meant to be in shape, or you can't lose this weight, or it's just negative all the time, it could take a lot of work. And so shifting mindsets, I think, comes with a couple different territories. And I probably won't hit every topic here, but one is you have to self-reflect. You have to really be, a lot of people aren't honest with themselves when they come to trainers and like, I want to lose weight. Oh, I'm doing so well. And then they like lie about half the stuff that they're
Mm.
not doing. It's like, oh, I didn't realize I had that chocolate. I didn't realize. It's like, okay, so you're not really being totally honest with me about it.
Mhm.
They're lying to themselves. They're lying to me. They're lying to
Self-deception, yeah.
themselves. Self-deception, that they think that they're in better shape, or this food isn't as bad as it should be. Also, it's okay. So number one, it's really self-reflection, really understand and be honest with yourself, and have yourself a good cry, to be honest, because it's a good
Mm.
emotional release to what am I doing wrong? Like what can I do to actually make a change in my life? And then really feel that. I think the two biggest things to changing your mindset, and I truly believe this, is one, emotion. You need to have emotion involved with it. And two is direct thought with the emotion. So if you want to lose weight, thinking about it and having an emotion about it are two combined things that will really help you push that forward. So for example, when I meditate, if there's something that I want, I know it sounds a little, woo woo, but like I will have a positive emotion towards what I want. And I will then force myself to basically have positive intent when the intent leads to action on it, which then yields different results, which will then yield the congruent results that I talk about over time. So when someone wants to change their mindset, it's all about, I think, number one, creating positive intent with what they want to do. And then building that discipline. Number two, like we talked about before, you have to kind of just push yourself to do it. And
Right.
as you get those mini successes and you see the results, it's like, okay, your mindset will shift slowly. For example, when you're an employee and you work for a company, it's like, my boss, he doesn't understand anything, that he sucks. I hate, we hear it all the time. So then I happen to be the boss in the situation. They don't get it. They're only looking at one cup of the situation. That's their perspective. That's their mindset. This one cup is that's their job title. That's the gym they manage. That's whatever. But as a manager, you have 5 cups you have to oversee. You see more of the bigger picture. And so when you go from 1 cup to 5 cups, your perspective changes. You see, oh, that's why my boss did that. Oh, that's why this happens.
Mhm.
Oh, that's why the trainer told me to stop eating that because I gained 50 pounds. When you can see the bigger picture, and you can only see the bigger picture as you improve, as you open more doors, as you get more results, you start to go, oh, the light goes on. That makes sense. That's why. So when you start seeing those little wins over and over again, you can start then basically changing your mindset that way. So once you can see more
Nice.
cups from the analogy, you can say, "Oh my gosh, that's why my boss did that. He wasn't being a jerk. He just understood that this leads to this, this, and this." Versus my
Nice.
little
Okay.
cup. Like, why can't you fill my cup all the way? Well, because I had to split it with five other. So it's a
Mhm.
matter of perspective, and when you're able to start seeing results, I think your perspective can naturally change. Now, again, I'm not a psychologist, not a perfect example, but
No,
that's
no, but you just connected like the whole arc of this conversation from something earlier was said. I want to like let it percolate a bit because I like this. First of all, a wise man once said, "Positive thoughts don't work unless you feel it." The wise man was you because I got that I think from your website. So it ties in with what you were just saying.
perfect.
But earlier we were talking about small wins, and that's how it's a quick way to start making progress. Almost under the radar, right? Like you don't even realize you're just doing this thing day to day and it's making progress. But then now you also said you can shift your mindset by getting the results, which sounds chicken and egg because you need to first get those results to then feel
Yes.
like, the result from getting results. So, I mean, people listening to that shit, it's a profound thing, but it really is true. It's that you want something, go and make these little changes, start to really acknowledge and feel and recognize and enjoy those results, and then it kind of iterates on itself. Hopefully, we're not getting too philosophical, Scott. I love this stuff. It's good.
Oh, I love it.
It's
I
good.
love it. And,
It's
and
good.
I find it to be the biggest issue people have is that, I think the positive intent is so important. And I think there's new studies out there right now, talking about, stuff I won't get into, of course, but creating new neurological pathways. And the only way to
Mhm.
rewire what's the way to fix your computer? It's to reset it, right? It's to get rid of the documents, get
Yeah.
rid of the files. So if you take that analogy, it's okay. If I have positive emotional intent, what they're saying is you could enter a certain brainwave status or a certain feeling, the
Okay.
meditation feeling, and say, okay, I'm going to do this, which will then create new systems in your body, which will then help you move
Mhm.
along and create more results. And it's a little woo woo. It's a little like, yeah, yeah, take some
No, I
time to
get
wrap
it.
your head
There's a
around it, but it's
scientific aspect to it that I think makes a lot. Even meditation and breathing and all that. Like I used to be very cynical
anti
about it, but
same.
there's science behind how we're wired and doing those things and how they change our brain and our physiology. So I like that you're bringing this stuff up, and hopefully people listening can go research, the theta waves and all this stuff. It's
Yeah,
kind of cool.
yeah. I
Yeah,
recommend. Who do I? Oh, there's so many of them out there, so I won't even
yeah,
recommend one of them. But just look up theta waves and all that stuff, and brain waves and changing habits. And I think you'll find some good, interesting reads.
cool.
And just to preface, just so everyone knows, like I'm the guy in I was the fraternity president. I was a big lifting guy. I was a varsity athlete. Like, I'm not this. I was never this meditation
Yep.
yoga ever until like a year and a half ago. And I started
Mhm.
studying it. I started really looking and wow, this stuff is life changing because the way I was doing it before wasn't working. And I was like,
Yeah,
this is actually very so I'm not that guy who's been like, oh, since I was 5 years old, I've been in the forest and meditating. That's not me at all.
sure.
I was very
You're
anti-meditation.
at a
I'm like, oh
monastery for 10 years. Yeah,
yeah, right. Now I'm like breathing. I breathe when I sleep. I need to work out. Leave me alone. And now it's like, okay, actually, there's a little bit more to it than I had
yeah.
initially anticipated. So, yeah.
Yeah, so people might be thinking then, okay, that's great. I want to start making all these changes. But there's a Winston Churchill quote I like, and of course I wrote it specifically down for this podcast, and it's plans are of little importance, but planning is essential, right? So when we want to change these habits, should we have a plan? Like, so we have this goal. We want to lose weight, and like you said, you need to go beyond that. Okay, why do you want to lose weight? Okay, I want to look good. Okay, why do you want to look good? Okay, I want to feel great for this or whatever. How specific should our goals and plans be to kind of reverse engineer back to what habits we should change?
I think all the way, as far as
Okay.
you can make it. As far as you can make it, because the farther back you go. So, for example, if you take that exact example you gave, so I want to lose weight. Why? Because I have a history of health disease in my family. Okay, but why do you want to lose? Oh, because my grandma or my mom died when I was young. What? So why is that
Mhm.
important to you? Because the way I felt. And then as you get deeper into the whys, as anyone with kids would know, they ask you why. As you
Mhm.
get deeper, you get more emotional. And the more emotional that you can get about why you're doing something,
Mm.
the percentage statistical likelihood of you to achieve that result is astronomically higher. So if you can get emotionally attached to it, and that's why I said be honest with yourself and stuff like, why do you want to do it? What's the actual reason why you want to lose 20 pounds? Because you don't have to lose 20 pounds. Like, live the way you want to live. Like, I'm not out here trying to get everyone. Like, if you don't want to lose 50 pounds, don't lose 50 pounds. I don't care. Like, but I want the people who do care to come to me. So I think I think you should dig all the way down. Now, if you're with a trainer and they're trying to do that with you, like, obviously you're only going to go so far, but I'm talking internally, go as deep as you can go, write down as many as those as you can, because the more emotional connection you can have, the better results you're going to have, because you're going to want to support yourself, because now you feel that emotion. Now I've had clients break down on a call with me crying because we broke it down, and they really felt that spark of like, wow, I didn't realize what I was feeling this whole time. And now it's so clear. And now they have a clear path, at least a more clear path forward to achieve their goals. Does it work every time? Of course not, but it's something that helps you along the way. Now, of course, I do want to preface that I'm not saying you shouldn't just grip it and rip it and work out, even if you haven't identified all those things yet. You shouldn't let overthinking stop you from taking action either. So that's a big thing. I'm not saying that you have to make this as perfect, but no, just do it along the way. Do it along the way, always reassess, and just, don't worry about the nuance of it. Just start going is kind of my
Yeah.
message
Yeah. It's
there.
a fine balance though. Like you said, you want to have an end goal. You want to have some steps along the way, but you also, every day things can change. So what? You go with the flow and keep getting out there and taking action.
Exactly. That's what coaches are for. So
that's what coaches are for, man.
Yeah, so.
I mean, you were talking about the why, and one of my clients said, she wants to be devastatingly gorgeous. She'll know who it is when she listen to this. And I said, well, why do you want to be that? Well, really, because I want to be a good role model for my kids. Okay, now we're getting a little bit more into what you really want, right?
It's like that's kind of not this. Yeah,
that's she's got a sense of humor. It's all good.
I love that. Devastatingly gorgeous. Me too. Yeah. If she finds the secret, let me know.
Exactly. All right. So a little side tangent here is you're kind of a storyteller and you do speaking engagements. And I mean, I personally have a passion for public speaking as a skill, because I used to be an introvert and it was something I had to get over. And again, mindset shift, like, used to be, well, I can't do that, what that guy's doing up on stage, to like, I know I can do that. Now let me get there. I'm curious what kind of speeches and seminars you do, like what topics, what audiences. Just, you mind sharing a little bit about that?
Yeah. Very similar to this, to be honest, like just a little bit more in detailing. We go through practical steps and like we go through more specific examples, get the audience involved. But a lot of it is really based on mindset and explaining the difference between discipline and motivation. I love talking about the basics of fitness. So I have presentations that are basically fitness 101, literally how do you get started from zero to like just going to the gym and like what you have to do in between. The most recent one I've been working on, and I haven't done it yet, but I'm going to be doing it, is called the 10-minute method. And it's basically how to basically master your fitness in 10 minutes. And the idea behind it is if you can master your mindset in 10 minutes, and it involves basically getting off the couch, warming up, and then committing to the workout in a 10-minute span, you can then achieve all the fitness results you want. So I would say a lot of what we talked about today are very similar to the public speaking aspect of, I know one of them was called the Be Do Have, which I spoke at a North Carolina convention last year. Actually, it ended up being virtual, but the idea behind Be Do Have was because you have to become the person, and then you can do things to have what you want. And most people have that the opposite. They're like, I'm going to do this so I could have this, and then I'll become this person once I have it. And it's actually, you have to reverse engineer it. That system doesn't work, as we've seen, considering our society, at least in the US, our society right now, it's not working with fitness. So you have to become that person, which most people don't want to do or don't understand.
Yeah.
And then, so it's the Be Do Have method was something I talked about, is becoming that person who works out, becoming that person who does that. So those are some topics I've talked about in the past.
Okay. Now the 10-minute method, is that also related to the coaching calls you tend to do?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Just letting people know. Gotta get it out there.
Appreciate it.
And the Be Do Have, it's funny. I've interviewed a few people leading to this show. I don't think their episodes have come out yet. Of course they will once they see this show, but and it's like that common theme of, I don't want to say positive visualization again. That sounds like the woo-woo thing. But if you are somebody a year from now, then you're obviously not doing something that person would do, right? And that's kind of leading you to taking those actions, right? Like it's almost like imagine if you become that person and all of a sudden you were in a coma for a year and you just stopped doing all the things that person would have been doing as part of their habits. Now you just need to get back to that. It's like,
Yeah, I
you
mean,
know,
yeah, basically. It's a good
um,
point. Yeah.
so the another question that comes to mind then is mindset versus education, right? How, in your experience, talking to people at these seminars, talking to people in general, how many people just don't know things versus they know the things but need the mindset change?
Man, that's a good question. I would say it's gotta be, I mean, it's not 50-50, but it's pretty close. I would probably say
Okay.
60%. You know what the issue is? A lot of people who don't have the right mindset also don't have the right education. So it's like
Right.
kind of
True.
kind of a mix. I would say the people that can literally just make a change and it's just all in their head is probably about 50, about 40%. I would say
Okay.
40% of them, like they can do it. I would say 60% need education. They just, and they think they know, but when you know, for example, you go really into fitness, right? It's okay. Well, if you want to do hypertrophy and you want to gain X amount, how many calories above your maintenance level do you have to eat? How do you find your maintenance level calorie? How many reps? What's your rest time in between? And they don't quite know that. They know how to work out. They know how to
Right.
get
The
the routine, but they,
nuances. Yes.
they don't know the nuance. I call them the basic nuances because those are simple to figure out.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah. For
I
sure.
don't get into like the I don't get into the real into the
Like the
weeds. I don't
Mike
think that's
Israel
important.
nuances. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't get into that. I think that's a waste of most people's time in the general population. But I think that the basic nuances are very important, and most people have issues with that. Now, I
Mhm.
would say in between those, some people they can at least go to the gym and lift weights, and they just don't quite know exactly how to put it together. So
Yep.
if that answers your question.
It does, and it's just it's for selfish reasons. When I bring guys on this podcast or ladies, it's I want to learn as much as I can too, but hopefully the listener is as well, because we all have to put our reels out on Instagram. And it's like, what do people really need? Do they need to shift their mindset, or do they need to know about macros? Or do they need to know about like
Both. It's
what
it's both.
deficit to be? Yeah, I know exactly. It's both.
Yeah.
So thanks for enlightening me on that. All right. I actually do hear that, but it's just very subtle. There's some construction going on with at Scott's right now, but we can't hear it,
And we had
so
a
it's all good.
there's a fire truck right next door, and I'm like, great guys,
That's what
thank
it
you.
is. It's the
But
frequency of the siren. Yeah. All right. So the penultimate question I like to ask all guests is, what one question did you wish I had asked, and what is your answer?
I mean, I think you covered it. I mean, you covered. I mean, I'm not sure there's a question I wished you asked. I think we had a really good conversation on the mindset. Maybe the only thing I didn't really cover was perception creating reality. I think
Okay.
that if you're someone who works in corporate America, which is the vast majority, or just you have a
Mhm.
stressful job, okay, or you have kids, or you have this. Like I call it the red light effect. Most of us, and I have it too, and I'm not better than anyone else. It's just everyone has it, but it's about the awareness of having it. When I'm going to work, okay, and there are 15 red lights, and I hit 7 green lights, 8 red lights. What do you tell everyone that came into work? I hit every freaking
The
red
red
light
light.
today.
Yeah.
You never acknowledge the positives in your life. Now, you'll acknowledge everyone else's positive except for your own.
Mm.
Your friend got a promotion, great job. Your friend got a girlfriend, great job. You got a raise, it's not that big a deal. No, we
Mhm.
always we're so negative towards ourselves. And so that creates the reality we live in. Because the reality is, you just said you missed every light, which is all 15 lights. But in reality is, you basically were half and half, green and red. And that's how most life is. Most of it's the law of large numbers is half and half. It's usually kind of how it breaks out. So the idea is your perception creates your reality. And whether you think it's woo woo or guru or whatever, and you don't like that stuff, just think about it. If you're negative all the time and you hate your body, you don't want to work out, it's going to create a self-fulfilling prophecy where you're going to rationalize, well, I can't work. I'm busy. That's where the excuses come from. I'm too busy. I had a stressful day at work. I hate this. I can't. It's like I've had clients who have, they're a single mother or single father with 3 kids, all in varsity sports. They got and they still beat me to the gym. So it's like, I don't even understand. I'm like, to me, it's like, I understand there's going to be times in your life where things are going to be difficult, but long term, like if you have a negative perception, that's going to create a negative reality. And that's going to create that constant loop that you're going to be in. And then it's very difficult to break that cycle. So I think that's one thing people fall into is they're so hard on themselves, but yet everyone else gets all the praise. Like, praise yourself first. Like, praise yourself, feel good about what you're doing. Like, oh my gosh, that's so great. And I have a hard time. I have a very hard time
Mhm.
taking any sort of appreciation. Oh
Sure.
my God, Scott. I'm like,
Love
okay,
that.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool. Thanks. I
Mm.
love it, but I'm like, I can't show that I love it. It's weird. So praise yourself, appreciate the small wins, because your perception creates your reality. And if you're always negative, you're always down on yourself. And if you're at the workout, just I hate this, it's not going to be, you're not going to like it. You should be enjoying at least not hating the process. I wouldn't say enjoying it, but you should not be hating the process. And you should really focus on spinning that negative. I'm not saying don't fake positivity.
Right,
Because,
right.
if you tell yourself,
Acknowledge
I'm,
it though.
I'm in
Yeah.
shape,
Yeah.
and you're not, like, you're just lying to yourself, and you're lying to yourself. But
Right.
if you can acknowledge successes, acknowledge where you're at, and create that silver lining for yourself and how you're going to improve, it will change your life for sure.
Yeah, and how, I mean, so just maybe come up with every day or every week, what is one win for today that happened to me, right? Is that, would you say that's an approach, or do you have other
Yeah.
approaches?
I
Yeah.
think it's great. If you wake up every morning, what I do every morning right now, at least I'm attempting to do every morning, is I wake up. What is one thing that I'm grateful for? And it could
There
be
you go.
anything in your life. Now, again, if you're going for a specific goal, it could be for a goal, but anything in your life, what am I grateful for?
Mhm.
And not to disparage anyone who doesn't have something, but like it could be, I'm grateful for having all 10 fingers because now I can button my shirt easily without having assistance. Like that, as simple as that is, no one thinks about that until something happens. So it could be that you have lights, that if you live in the
Sure.
US, you have power this winter versus in Europe where they might not
Mhm.
have power this winter. Like there's certain things you can be grateful for that, in me, change the narrative. If you're looking for some sort of win in your goal, yeah, what did you do yesterday that you could be proud of and be grateful for it the next day, or be grateful for it that night before you go to bed? Either way,
Cool.
when you wake up, go to bed, yeah, be grateful. If you're grateful for something or one acknowledgement of winning, that can help break the cycle for sure.
Awesome. Be grateful. Great way to end the podcast, I think. Last question would be then, where can listeners learn about you and your work?
Oh my gosh, it's everywhere. No, so the Power of Progress, iTunes,
Just Google
Spotify.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, Google, you'll find me somewhere. iTunes, Spotify, Power of Progress is on there. Instagram, Scott Friedman 24, and then the website I have is scottspeaksfitness.com. Those are probably the three main places people can. And feel free, reach out. I'm always available. I answer every DM that comes my way, assuming it's reasonable. And so I'm pretty open with everyone.
Cool. Everybody DM Scott right now, so his inbox gets
Yeah,
flooded. He'll
do
be
it.
happy to help. I'll put those links in the show notes to the podcast, the website, Instagram. Listeners can find you. And again, Scott, thank you again, man. This is a really great talk. I had a lot of fun. Hope you did as well. Thanks for coming on.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.